Tonight we explore reincarnation and regressive therapy. The idea that consciousness survives death and returns again. From ancient traditions to modern hypnotic sessions, these stories suggest our memories may stretch beyond the span of a single lifetime. But as we dive deeper, we'll also explore how these patterns connect to the brain's hidden architecture, where mossy fibers bring order and rhythm, and climbing fibers guide transformation and ascent. Could reincarnation be more than myth? Could it be a reflection of universal laws that shape consciousness and even the cosmos itself? I'm Roger Hanson. Tonight I'll be your host, and joining us tonight is my co-host, Sonia Galactech, spelled T-E-C at the end instead of T-I-C. And with her is our esteemed panel. Since he is the first one, or the new one to the group, I'd like to introduce first last. If you want to give your real name, you can first. It's up to you.
Well, tonight we'll just stay with first last. It'll be fine.
Okay.
And yeah, I appreciate being here. I have had some experience and personal revelations, but I wouldn't mind sharing that to you. It's a three-part thing, but we can get there.
Okay. So after that, we have Jason Quigley, aka MC Dirty Work, and we also have Arpad Bass, aka Vicky Bass.
Hello.
Then we also have Nancy Planeta and Mark Edworthy. And besides them, there's our producer, Mark Watashik. And I always say his name because I enjoy saying his last name. I love it now. So, with that being said, we are going to we're going to get on with the questions. Tonight, we'll be exploring these key questions. And one is, are past life memories real or constructed? Two, how might the brain serve as a conduit for such experiences? And three, what does these cycles suggest about the larger architecture of growth, ascent, and consciousness? So with that being said, let's listen to this clip from In Search of Past Life, Season 4, Episode 24, hosted by Leonard Nimoy. Before we go on to the discussion.
I already started the clip when you said that. Sorry.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Now this is where we get into the brainstorming, because as you guys can tell, you don't hear the brainstorming. Now, to occupy the 22 minutes and to give you guys an idea of what the video is about and what the topic's going to be about, we'll be brainstorming. That's where we'll come up. I'll throw some stuff out to you guys, and if you feel like talking about it, we'll talk about it. Now, tonight, tonight we can do that and get it going and see how you guys want to talk about with it. So we do have quite a few people here, so whenever we do this, all I ask is that you be respectful to one another. Don't crosstalk, which means allow the person to finish their conversation before you start, stuff like that. Just be courteous to yourself, and remember that the people who are watching and listening, it's hard for them to understand what's being said whenever people are cross-talking. So just keep that in mind, you know what I mean? So the first thing I want to talk about is cultural universality of reincarnation. Okay, why the idea persists across time and place. Reincarnation is one of those rare ideas that refuse to stay confined to one culture or era or belief system. It arises independently across civilizations from ancient India to Greece and from tribal shamans to modern New Age circles. Now, that persistence suggests it isn't just religious teachings, it's a human intuition about the nature of existence. Human beings struggle with the finality of death, is the way I usually see it. The idea of reincarnation answers like a deep-seated need that identity and consciousness don't just vanish, but continues in another form. So, with that, I want to start it off with that. See what you guys think about that when it comes to the history of reincarnation and how it just persists on and on all throughout history. So, what do you guys think?
Well, I believe the earliest culture that we know of that spoke of reincarnation were the Indians, and it was the Vedic texts. It goes back thousands of years. I've always kind of thought that given the location of India when it came to the Silk Road, trade, it was actually pivotal in a lot of those things. So a lot of cultures would have traversed those areas, whether it was through trade, whether it was through travel. It was a well-traveled zone. So I can see where that would actually lead on. But in the same respect, I am a believer that like the inscribers of the Vedic texts, I believe ancient cultures were a lot more intelligent than we will ever give them credit for. I think they were incredibly advanced in a lot of ways, not just technically, but when it came to anatomy and physiology. I think they knew a lot more than we've ever been allowed to, I guess you could say, explore. And I say that because we found evidence. We found evidence in Egypt. Obviously, they knew how to take a body and basically make it last thousands of years. Those techniques, that's not something a caveman does. Machu Picchu, we showed evidence of brain surgery being performed. So they had a vast knowledge that I'm going to take that wild jump and say it was purposefully destroyed, probably by the church, because again, you can't control something that's more intelligent than you are. And that was always the mantra of the church, basically keep the serfs and keep the royalty and don't spread the knowledge. It's why we had the Vatican vaults. And I always say that the Vatican vaults contain probably more knowledge than we could ever probably hope to even encompass. And a lot of that type of knowledge is in those vaults, ancient knowledge, because literally that's what the Jesuits did. They went out around the world and they gathered as much as they possibly could, and what they didn't want to burn, they locked up. So, yeah, I know it started, like I said, I know reincarnation, the actual thought process of it started with the Vedic texts. And I also wonder too, because the Indian culture and actually that whole Far Eastern culture, they were very much into transcending consciousness, meditation, things like that. Those were their forms of connecting, not just to nature and their surroundings, but to their gods. So you can kind of, I guess you could say, they may have had a sense of the fact that your consciousness is separate from your body. And I know a lot of people scoff when I say that, but there is some science to it. We do have an electric current that runs through our body physically. And by definition, energy can either be created or destroyed. It can only conduct or change. End of sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So when we die, the energy that basically powers our body, our heart, our blood, it has to go somewhere. It can go to the ground, it can go to the air, but it has to go somewhere. This is but a shell. It's funny because I think all religions kind of got that right. It's your temple, it's your this, it's your that, whatever. It's temporary. And I truly believe that your consciousness is probably embedded in that energy. But that being said, you also have, as we know now, epigenetics, which is cellular memory. And I've always wondered too, did they get it confused when, somebody's born generations later and has the memories of somebody from generations earlier? Did they confuse that for maybe the second coming of that person or a reincarnation when it was truly just a very strong showing of cellular memory? And we should have, again, before they even came up with epigenetics, we should have known there was something to that when we were doing transplants and people were getting cravings and having memories of the donor. So, right there, they should have known there was something cellular going on. And as we found out later, of course, it's that the cell is imprinted with memory. So when somebody would get a donor organ, that sometimes it was olfactory, they would smell something or smell of something that would give them a memory that wasn't theirs. It was from the donor. But that's a science. It's not, as I like to say, the mystical, the oogie boogie. There's actually a science to that. So I'm on the fence because I'm like, it could be scientific. It could be straight up cellular memory that just keeps coming back over and over again. But I also am of the mind that, again, energy can neither be created nor destroyed if it's intelligent energy. And I'm thinking they have figured that out because, again, we're talking about current technology companies talking about giving blueprints for soul machines, ways to transcend your intelligence into a computer. That would allude to the fact that your intelligence is connected to an energy source of some kind to be imprinted. In other words, it could be conducted. So, yeah, I'm going to let somebody else talk because I've talked for too long.
Nancy, just on that point, the so-called soul machines, I always thought of them, of the concept as a sort of photocopier, a duplicate rather than a
it depends on
translation.
Yeah, it depends on which blueprints you're looking at. Because I got to tell you, man, if you go into the patents, there's like a million different patents for different types of soul machines. Some of them they're just wacko. You're reading it going, yeah, no, what, who wrote that? But some of them have some real intellectual thought and science behind them, and it's actually kind of scary because if they're capable of uploading, mimicking, mirroring what you are at your very core, if they're capable of doing that and loading it into a computer, they can trap you forever. I mean, it's funny because I always say religions have been built for thousands of years on fear. Religions and governments have been built on fear. And the Roman Empire, I always say this, when the Roman Empire figured out that the mortal life of a human or a slave no longer meant enough to them to scare them into obedience, they decided to make the immortal life the thing to be afraid to lose. So thus Christianity was an easy segue for the Roman Empire. And if you actually look up the history, the Senate of Rome didn't go anywhere. They literally amalgamated into the Vatican. The royal bloodlines of the Senate are literally running through the Vatican, which it's kind of crazy, but I thought, what a genius move on the Roman Empire's part. They lost the empire per se, and they created a larger one through religion. And they kept people in line with fear of basically a damned eternity. That is a greater fear to humans than a damned life, because there's no coming back from a damned eternity. So again, yeah.
The thing with this too is it's like human beings, like I said, struggle with the finality of death too. You know what I mean? The idea of reincarnation, it answers a lot of deep-seated need. That identity and consciousness don't just vanish. Okay, they continue in another form. Now, cultures may frame it different, but the core intuition, and I mean intuition when I say that, that's the same. The self is not annihilated; it's just transformed according to them. And if you go in and you look at Carl Jung's concept of archetypes, it helps explain why reincarnation reoccurs in cultural myth. Because what he always talks about is the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, and how it mirrors natural cycles like the seasons, day and night, decay, and regrowth. So that right there is something that really is something that really sticks out, because humanity projects these types of rhythms into the soul. And that's through the archetypes of like eternal return and life renewing itself, and it's fundamental, and it's also natural. It naturally arises wherever humans are seeking meaning. You know what I mean? For Hinduism and Buddhism, for example, they have detailed doctrines of karma and rebirth. And that's to define entire cosmologies. Then you have ancient Greek, and
near-death experience, though. This is the problem.
well, see, you have philosophers like Pythagoras and Plato who spoke of transmigration of souls.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then you have, like you were talking about, the indigenous traditions, okay? And from the Inuit all the way to the Hopi, many tribes used to tell stories of spirits returning through children.
Yes.
And then after, what about Gnosticism, Kabbalah, and spiritualism? I mean,
that's what I'm saying, though. It's more to that, though, Roger. Even in so currently, in current times, how many hundreds, actually, how many thousands of experiences have you read of NDE, near-death experience, where the body dies and the body is dead for X amount of time, and yet the person has clear memory of people 5 rooms away from them because their spirit, according to them, went there. They listened to entire conversations, were able to reiterate the entire conversations. They were able to reiterate conversations between physicians. I mean, that's the type of thing where I'm like, I have to hit pause and say, there's no explaining that. There's no rational way you can sit here and tell me, well, maybe there was a hidden microphone behind the dead person's ear and they heard this conversation.
I'm going to let everybody know, okay, that we're going to have to restart Teams again in less than 15 minutes.
wow.
Okay, because someone didn't hang up. All right, so I'm going to, and since we're still on break technically, because the file is still playing on the radio side and we're not being heard on the radio side, I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And then we're going to have to then when we go to break at the top of the hour, I'll do it again just to get us back on track. All right. So make sure everybody hangs up. All right. And then we'll pick up and talk about it more. And hopefully we'll be closer to the end of the clip, because we have about a little over 7 minutes or over 6 minutes. All right, I'm going to do that right now.
Just say,
so everybody hang up and wait for me to
Nancy,
call back.
Just to say too, that was a great conversation. I like that. So I'm going to hang up now, but I just wanted to
I definitely hung up.
Yeah. Okay, so we are waiting for the callback, and that was actually a pretty good opener for our brainstorming. So after that, I'm going to start talking about traditions of reincarnation that provide moral structure. That would be tied to karma.
There you are, Roger.
Yeah, there we go. We got it.
Nancy.
Hey.
Yeah,
Jason
those,
Hello.
all those
and
hooligans.
Vicky.
All those
Yeah,
hooligans.
maybe there's a chance I can get David Campione back in with us, but he told me in Facebook he was trying to get in, but it's not letting him in. I'm like, I don't know.
I know Rafa's there too, trying to get in.
It was
He was trying to
Yeah.
figure out what room.
Well, see, I don't even I don't even have Raph on here.
yeah.
Um,
So
oh, there he is. It's still trying to call Raph. That's why. Maybe because
Right.
when Raph came in, that put us at 10. Or I don't know. We can have only 10 people in the call at one time with this.
okay, so with the first part I was on, I wanted to finish it up with the like karma. Okay, now when it comes to karma and what we were talking about before, for many traditions, reincarnation provides like a moral structure, and karma ties to action, to consequences beyond one lifetime. You know, making the universe seem fairer. It seems like. And this idea persists because it gives
No. He wants you in, Karma.
it gives meaning to like suffering. You know what I mean?
She's leaving out because she
Instead of random
better
misfortune.
type to her, Roger. She's leaving out.
That's
I have it up. Look for Cafe Enigma on YouTube under Dragus Productions.
no.
So
That was the one thing that I did want to bring up too, is about karma, especially when it comes to that, when it comes to this this idea that it gives meaning to suffering, you know, instead of like a random misfortune. That life's a part of like a larger story that stretches across incarnations and stuff of that nature. You know?
Did I
I know.
say my part now?
Yeah.
Do you want me to say it?
Oh boy.
Since I'll be the only one. It's going to be short and sweet.
well, once
Go ahead.
I was going to say, once we take and get going, I'll tell you where it all led to. Basically, some connections with it from the original show that I did on it. So yeah, I think Nancy, you were on that show, and you'll probably remember when I start talking about it.
Yep, I do actually remember the show.
Has something to do with DNA.
Yep. Actually, I was posted about DNA.
Yep.
They had. I'm just going to say my little spiel and then
Say it.
go.
Say it.
We use the term born again
Mm-hmm.
and rebirth. That is not for the evangelical, for the Protestants, for the Christians. That is not the cycle which you all are talking about reincarnation, the soul going into another body and then going into another body, those cycles. It's a spiritual rebirth. And then Jesus was saying that it's given for a man to die, and after that, the judgment. So he lives on earth, and when he dies, he goes immediately to the chosen place where he wants to go, as far as
and you're reborn there. So that's reincarnation too, though.
Well, it's heaven or hell. That's that you.
Yeah,
you
you're
go there
reincarnated in one of those places.
But
Yeah,
if it's not, and that would be a different way of saying that word. But
I was thinking
Don't get her riled.
I want to get her stirred up because
yeah.
once we come back, I want to, you wanted to turn her loose. I'm trying to rile her up for you, Roger.
Go for it. Go for it. Get her.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Some of the things that we're talking about as far as the philosophy is concerned, the American Indian believes that we are dead and in hell. And the only way that we have is to go up. In other philosophies, let's say the only thing that they were able to find of him, well, they found all of him with the exception of his phalanx, which we now have monuments to. We also have the philosophy that the energy can't die. We have the scientific support of seeing an orb leaving these people directly after death. We do have actual evidence. The issue is whether or not this is now um, actual reality of what happens to us, or here's the other thing. We're talking about putting our essence into a mechanical being.
Okay,
Now,
we got
if we
30
sit there-
seconds before we come back on radio air.
Okay, so
Okay.
hold on a
If I
minute.
make a mathematical model of a rock, is it also a rock? I yield.
Okay, we got 30 seconds, so hold on. We're going to do a countdown and we will get back to that. It sounds like you guys are fired up and ready to go. Poor MC Dirty Work couldn't say a word edgewise in.
Oh, he will when I start bringing some stuff up, and then Nancy's going to join in too. 3, 2, 1, and you're live right now.
Okay. Across cultures and centuries, reincarnation has persisted as one of humanity's most enduring beliefs. In Hinduism and Buddhism, the soul cycles through many lives, guided by karma, the law of cause and effect. In the ancient Mediterranean, philosophers like Pythagoras and Plato argued that knowledge itself was memory from past lives. Even in the West, stories of children recalling names, places, and events they could never have known continued to challenge skepticism. Regressive therapy seeks to unlock these hidden memories, often through hypnosis. Patients describe vivid scenes, identities, and sometimes even languages they have never studied. Some report physical symptoms tied to past traumas, aches, or scars that only make sense when linked to another life. Are these simply creations of the imagination, or could they be glimpses from something deeper, signals imprinted on the mind itself? Consider this. If the brain is a pattern weaving system, what if these regressions are signals, fragments of rhythm and memory woven into the very fibers of consciousness? Could we be turning into something larger than ourselves? And with that, I'm going to open it up to the panel. But first, I'm going to see if my co-host is still here. Is she? No, she is not. With that being said, I am going to go ahead and open it up to the panel. Who would like to go first? I will hold up here. Let's get first to come start this out. He said he had some stuff. Go ahead and respond to that if you want to. First, you gotta unmute. Man, oh man.
I guess everybody's on mute tonight, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I was going to bring up. Go ahead, Nancy.
No, I was going to say it's interesting the way you worded coming into this. I mean, you've got so many different cultures that look at it so many different ways. I mean, one of the most common things you hear is that everybody is reborn into the 12 signs of the zodiac. That basically Aries is the first sign, Pisces is the last sign. So by the time you hit Pisces, which I happen to be, you have lived 11 other lives, and you lived them basically repeating mistakes. So by the time you get to Pisces, you're supposed to have learned as much as you possibly could, because it's like your last step. It's that's at least one of the theories. I don't
What makes us old souls.
Well, I think they say that too. Pisceans are old souls, and but they're also, if you notice, our sign is like one of the primary signs when it comes to suicidal thoughts. It's Pisces. It can be very erratic, depending on how they think and how they handle things. But because they're a highly emotional sign. But I can tell you that, I mean, just even with all the different cultures and how you view it, there are too many things that cannot be explained for us to rule out reincarnation. You've got children who have memories, I mean, accurate memories of World War II. I mean, like 3 and 4-year-olds who can give you flight patterns for the RAF because they believe they're a reincarnated pilot. They have no idea what that means, but they'll come out with these entire storylines of what life they lived. You have people who have mind-bending fears of things that they cannot explain, and they have a memory of a death. Of, like, fire is one of the bigger ones, where if somebody died in a fire, it's really strange because I've met 3 people that believe that they've been reincarnated and that they died in fire because they dream of it all the time. So again, I told you guys, I'm on the fence when it comes to reincarnation, because there is a thing called cellular memory. And cellular memory isn't just body function. Cellular memory is actually memory of events. And they've proven that you can actually inherit the memories of your ancestors. And I'm going to also add that
points, but they're contradictory. In one point, we don't have a genetic. I know about the World War II reference that you were giving, and that's actually part of the story I'd like to share too. But that has no family relationship. So there's something that is happening at multiple levels here. We're not just talking about a single level. We're talking about,
What I was going to say on the end of that, though, was that we have discovered in the past decade, and again, when we're saying cellular memory, and it's not genetic, but when women sleep with more than one man, that man, every time there's copulation, he's leaving cells in her body, which can be, when she gets pregnant, passed on to the child. So in other words, that child, even though it's genetically of its father, it can have cellular memory of anybody else that the mother has had intercourse with. And that's science.
She has to make antibodies to him. Each
Yep.
person she makes antibodies to.
So
something I think is interesting.
Go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to say something I think is interesting. That sac of fluid that we're born into, it's called amniotic fluid. Amnesia, amniotic fluid. So it etymology wise, it almost gives the idea that wherever we're coming from, which I think is just as interesting of a question as what happens when we die, where we're going to, where were we before we were here. Etymology wise, amniotic fluid seems like somebody doesn't want us to know what was going on before, or if anything was going on before.
Well, not only that, but you also have that spark that is life.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of always go back to that too, because that shows an energy. When an egg and a sperm meet, if it's something that creates a fetus, there's literally a physical spark, a bright light that occurs, and life begins.
Wasn't there an old film that they actually got that on?
Yep.
They actually took a camera and, this is in like the 70s, I'm talking like maybe 77, 78, or maybe the very early 80s. But yeah, then they tracked the whole light or whatever and actually got that spark. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I remembered that.
No, that's true. It's brilliant photography they took that from.
Yes.
Yep.
And
it's interesting because, go ahead, Vic, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just was saying that, according to the other school of thought, the Christians, the evangelicals, God is the one that creates that life within the mother. And so he creates that life. If you see it as a spark, that's fine. And then, as I said before, as far as humans are concerned, it's given to men once to die and then the judgment. So they go based on whether they've accepted salvation or not, to heaven or hell, and that it's immediate, and there is no running around, or like the Nephilim, those that were wiped out from the flood, and their souls are running around, and those are what we call demons. And the reason I bring that up is because some schools of thought thinks that when you're doing hypnotic, or and you are putting someone, you're basically hijacking their minds, that is a way that any demons around can come in, and that's what you're hearing from. I'm just saying the school of thought, that's what you're hearing from. You're not it's not from that person. Now, only if you are a born again, we use that term, believer, your soul is sealed. You get the gift of the Holy Spirit. Now, you can be, if you're not, possessed by demons. You've heard of that, right? Possession.
Of course.
It's not just the law.
And right. So my question, and I do not know this, the answer, but if people somehow, if they can be possessed by a running around, whatever demon is condemned to be on earth until the end, then, how that may not be different as to how they're getting it, put into a machine.
Well, here's the thing, Vic. I can integrate science into your beliefs, much as you don't want to hear this, but it does work. I mean, the Christian beliefs, and I'm not Christian and definitely not a born again. The beliefs believe in the Holy Spirit. They believe in the demonic entity. They believe in all of these things that are not physical. Okay, they're not corporeal. So what would they be? If I'm going to break it down, I'm going to say it's a form of energy.
Right.
Correct.
So,
again, we're in that same train of thought now. So if a Holy Spirit can come into your soul, into your body, why can a soul not, if it's energy, why can it not reincarnate? I mean, and we're talking reincarnation occurs when the child, okay, so you have the gup. I mean, I'm pretty well religiously schooled, and the gup, of course, is the innocent souls. Those are the well of souls of infant children that have never lived before. They're pure, they're innocent, they're housed in the, and supposedly when a woman conceives, a soul comes from the gup to inhabit the child that she has conceived. Now, that child still has to be baptized by any Christian faith. But the fact is that is the thing. But it's still a form of energy. That spark of conception is a form of energy.
Yes.
It is something entering that fetus. Again, if I'm going to follow that science and not follow the religion, I'm going to say, if it's spark to life, it's spark at death. And we can prove that the human body actually weighs less. When it dies, it actually loses, I think it's something like 1.2 grams. They cannot explain that loss. They cannot.
I have heard that.
Yep. It's not, there's no explaining the loss. It's not bodily fluid. It's not defecation. They don't know what that loss is.
So it's hydrogen.
Well, we do. It's just that we won't admit to knowing it, right?
This is what I'm saying. And this is not an easy conversation to have because everybody has different beliefs. And nobody wants to offend anybody else, but you have to be logical about it in some ways, and you have to, of course, adhere to your beliefs. I'm not here to tell anybody to not believe what they've always
something I've learned, and it's been a really hard knock learning it. No matter what I believe is not going to change the truth. So when I get there, I guess I'll find out.
And that's the answer to everybody. It's so funny because, I've done ghost hunting for decades. And when Vicky talks about, nope, you either go to heaven or hell. One of the things I always said on investigations, because trust me, I have run into things, and I think you guys know me pretty well. I don't shake easily. Not a lot of things scare me, and they'll startle me, but I want answers. And 99% of the time,
Go ahead
yes.
and friend me in the chat and everything, and get a hold of me tomorrow. I
Okay.
do have some information for you, but it seems like a good place for the story I had for you. Would you like me to explain it?
Sure.
When I was 3 or 4 years old, I had a very frustrating argument with my mother, and it had to do with memories and things of that nature. But it's really strange because I'm displaced from the memory. I remember being 3 years old. I remember the frustration, but the actual details of that frustration, I remember when I was 8 years old describing what happened to me when I was 3 years old. But get this, I was 3 years old talking about something that happened 5 years prior.
Yeah. And that's not uncommon.
Well,
it's not.
here's what the take is on it, though. And what I do remember that is vivid. I remember a white room. I remember I could not leave it. I remember that there was a door and a perception of a window, conversation point that I could interact with somebody. I don't remember speaking. I remember being impressions. And I remember that I wanted to do this life. And they're saying, no, this other life would be so much better for you. And it's like, no, look at what this life accomplishes. And I had to have an argument, and I made a petition to somebody, something, and they allowed me to live the life that I was living. Prior to that, which I wouldn't really realize until I was around 22, 23 years old, I was attending Oshkosh, and one of the few PT-38s, which is the twin fork devil that they talk about. It's normally a one pilot. However, they had taken all the radio gear out behind the pilot seat and put in a jump seat. And I was privileged in order to ride along around the pattern a couple of times in that. But that airplane is extremely unique. It has counter rotating propellers. On one side, it rotates clockwise. The other side, it rotates counterclockwise. And it places such an unusual gyroscope on the airplane that I instantly knew the moment that the wheels left. I knew every inch of that airplane. I had memory of it. I knew where the throttle was. I knew where the sticks were. I knew where the ignition switch was. I knew the unusual wiggle in the tail caused by the rotations of the prop. And I had determined at that time that it was a flashback of a memory during World War II. I was reborn in 1962. And it was the time between the time that I had died, which I believe was in combat, to the time of 1962 that I was reborn. But I was remembering the time in between, that I was held someplace, that I had a choice, and I had made a choice in order to participate. I yield.
It's so interesting that you're saying that, because when I said that's not uncommon. Children they're little windows into the universe in many, many ways, because they haven't been jaded. When they're little, their view of the world is so innocent. There's no impressed perceptions that we put on them. Not yet. And you can tell when they start getting of school age is when they start losing that innocence, and they see things. I always say, listen to them, because they're telling you things. And a lot of times, like I said, when you talk about past life regression or a past life experience, it's children that are relaying it because they haven't forgotten yet. or they did, and I don't know why some people don't forget and some people do. I know I've said to people, if I ever lived a past life, I was probably a teacher, because I get this every time I think about it, I get this vision of a Victorian era educator. And I don't know why. And I'm like, that's so weird. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's, if I lived a past life, that was something I was. That, or genetically it got handed down to me. One of the two.
Before you
I
guys
can't.
before you guys continue with that, I do want to get into the regression therapy. That
Yeah.
that is something that's very important now. Regression therapy, how hypnosis is used, and whether it opens doors to memory or imagination. Okay, now regression therapy is usually carried out under hypnosis. The client is guided into like a deeply relaxed trance-like state where critical awareness softens, the unconscious is allowed to surface. Now, the therapist then suggests going back sometimes to early childhood, other times to supposed past lives. What emerges are vivid scenes, emotions, and narratives that feel real to the person experiencing them. Now, this is how hypnosis, according to what I've found out, works. It's the relaxation plus the suggestibility. Okay, that's where hypnosis lowers the filtering mechanisms of the conscious mind. And that's usually the prefrontal gatekeeper. Okay, and it increases suggestibility. That means memories, associations, and creative imagery can flow more freely. So, access to store materials is what that comes to. In this altered state, people may be able to retrieve like forgotten details of their childhood or even pre-verbal memories, But hypnosis is not a perfect memory retrieval tool. It's more like turning up the volume on whatever is lingering in the subconscious. So, after that, you come to the narrative construction. The brain loves patterns and coherence. If there are gaps in memory, the mind often fills them with imagination, sometimes unconsciously. Now, under hypnosis, this can feel absolutely authentic. And this is what Vicky is kind of getting to in her religious thing, but I'm talking about it in like the actual scientific part. It may seem absolutely authentic. Some argue that hypnosis bypasses conscious censorship, allowing repressed or deeply buried memories to surface, though. And a good example of that is like trauma survivors sometimes recall earlier experiences under regression that align with like later verified events. Advocates of past life regression claim that some mechanisms apply, like memory exists beyond the present lifetime, and hypnosis unlocks it. So those are the kind of things that happens with regressive therapy. And
What about alien, when they have, been abducted by alien and they use that, right? To go back and see what happened?
yes, a lot of people do use it.
Yeah, it is one of the therapies they use on what they call abductees,
Uh-huh.
To try to get to the core of the trauma that they experienced.
Right.
But the problem I have with hypnotic therapy is that you are at the mercy of the administrator. And we've seen it used in very bad ways. Back in the mid to late 90s, we had all those poor people working the child daycare centers where, if you even stepped sideways, they were taking the kids into hypnotherapy and getting all these horrible, horrible abuses that were occurring, and it all turned out to be crap. And it was therapists that were implanting thoughts. So we've learned it could be a weapon, but on the other side of that, we only use 10% of our brains.
Mhm.
So God only knows what we're capable of storing, what we're capable of doing.
Mhm.
They're proving now that people are absolutely capable of telepathic thought, and we do it very naturally. Um, these are all things that they're working on currently in science. They know we share our dreams. If you are a couple and you sleep together every night in the same bed, it's just a matter of time before you start sharing your dreamscape. And they found that out with the U.S. military. In fact, Raphael knows about that because when I was reading it, I was like, oh, dear God. Apparently, some of their spec ops guys, their wives knew details of their missions. And so the government investigated it, thinking that the guys were talking. No, they were sharing it in their dreams. And that is actually a United States Army study because they were trying to get to the bottom of it. They thought they had a leak, and that was not the problem. The problem was that they sleep with their wives, and they do so every night that they're home, and they linked. And it's not everybody that does that, but they say that you are attracted. I've always heard that your mate or mates, because most people have more than one mate in their life. You are attracted to somebody. You are attracted to somebody who came from the same proton. So we're basically all proton dust, and we know that. That's kind of what we consist of, our physical form. But they say that you are attracted to somebody of like frequency. And go ahead.
Now, Tanhai Tran had a comment. He said, I like the Protestant lady's comment about born again. It's spiritual rebirth, not the same as reincarnation.
Correct.
Just clarifying that terminology there. Yes.
We got to make her where she's happy because we don't want her getting angry. You don't want to see her when she gets angry.
Yeah.
She doesn't get angry.
To get a hold of me because there's something about energy that you keep trying to go back to science, and I have some revelation for you on that topic, but it's a little bit deep in order to bring into this show.
Yeah, energy. Like I always say, energy is everything. It's frequency and vibration. We as humans are, all you are is a giant oscillating particles. So kept together by frequency and vibration. That's, again, a scientific fact.
We established something here that I think that we can go back to, that there is a spark of light at the beginning of life, and at the end of life, there's a release of that light.
Now, we are going to do a deeper dive into this topic. We're going to explore the science of signals within the brain itself. Neuroscience describes two key networks. That's the mossy fibers and climbing fibers. Mossy fibers guide information in orderly rhythms, ensuring raw signals are interpreted correctly. Climbing fibers, on the other hand, spiral upward, less constrained, transforming raw data into new patterns of knowledge. Together, they create a dance of structure and transformation in the very architecture of learning. So today, I wanted to bring up on this part of the stream basically two talking points, and that is, could mossy fibers within the brain be pathways to higher perception? And are mossy fibers the anchors of reality in the same way myths describe such things as the world tree? So with that, I want to open this up with first these fibers. But are they biological myth generators within our brains? Now, when I pose the question, I'm connecting neurobiology with myth making. asking whether structures in the brain, like climbing fibers and mossy fibers, could be the very mechanisms that transform raw experiences into symbolic narratives, which later become myths. Now, climbing fibers carry raw, powerful, often unpredictable bursts of signal, like sudden insights or visions or emotional surges. In mythical language, this is the spark or divine inspiration, the lightning bolt from the gods, the dream visitations, or the mystical revelation. Now, mossy fibers provide rhythm and sequence, structuring signal into a pattern activity that can be stored and recalled. In myth making, this resembles the process of taking wild, chaotic experiences and weaving them into story, something the community can share and understand. Now, every culture has myths of ascent, climbing ladders, trees, vines, mountains, and order, which is roots, foundation, underworlds. Now, these reflect how the brain itself is wired, oscillating between chaos, which is raw signals, and order, which is patterns. Now, the act of storytelling might be the brain's attempt at reconciling these two forces and internal neurological rhythm that becomes expressed in mythic archetypes. Okay, so with that, I'm going to open it up and I want to hear what you guys have to say about that.
Well, isn't that kind of what dreams do? I mean, dreams are basically your brain's way and your consciousness's way of breaking things down to metaphorical value. I always hated it when they would say, your dreams they're just trash. They're nothing. No, that is not true. Nothing about us is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We are perfect creatures in many, many, many ways, and we're very, very, very advanced in many ways that we give ourselves no credit for because we've been told not to. But your dreams, 90% of people's dreams are metaphorical breakdowns of either their day, their week, their past, or in many cases, their future. It is your consciousness communicating with the id, the unconscious.
I think that would also be confused with what everyone is capable of doing, and many times in a dream state does it, is out-of-body travel. They actually can go and observe events from a fourth perspective. It's not a third perspective. It becomes a fourth perspective because it is their interpretation through a third party's interpretation when they do that. However, now I haven't heard the fibers that you're referring to, but after you started describing their function, I recognized it right away. And it's a little bit of a three-part story here. The first part is, where did it come from? Where this story comes from is the original meaning of the word worship. There is a syllable or a hard consonant missing. And what that is a letter K. It's workship. You used to work for the church. Everybody was communal. The entire church held the community together, and by working for the church, you earned your food, your keep, and what else you would have. So if it was defense, if it was creating something called monatomic gold, which was the biggest actual worship that they actually performed at that time. The monatomic gold has a special function, and it can not only be in our physical realm, but it also can transfer to the energetic realm. And white gold is another description for that, which many people over the age of 40 would recognize. But they don't recognize monatomic because we really didn't have that in the mainstream media, that terminology. So white gold dating back to the time of Christ. And this white gold has a place that it collects in the body, and that is your pineal gland in the center of your brain, which is also your eye, which is made up of the fibers that maybe he was talking about specifically, that is actually a third eye that has no escape in order to see light. So what is it looking at? It's looking at the energy world. I yield.
Right. Now, before we
Yeah,
go,
your
hold up.
pineal gland.
Nancy
I was just
wanted to
gonna say.
do, hold up. Nancy wanted to
Oh,
do
go
a
ahead.
shout out real quick, and then I want you to take over, MC. But Nancy, you wanted to do a shout out. So I hope she's still there. She might have stepped away. Did
Yeah, I was just gonna say what he was talking about, the pineal gland. Yeah, absolutely. Your third eye, etc. I could see that. Ever since I was a little kid, I used to do what they called it lucid dreaming. When you know that you're dreaming. And I mean, I did it pretty often. I mean, maybe every other day, every 3 days. And until I was about, almost 18, I thought that was normal. Thought everybody did that. And then when I was 17, something like that, I didn't found out what it was actually called, lucid dreaming. But yeah, astro traveling. I definitely believe in something like that. I don't want to get too far into it now, but I got pretty good with it once I learned in my dreams that I was self-aware, and I was like, all right, I'm dreaming. Immediately, it was like, all right, let me play with this. Let's see what we can, because usually you wake up when that happens. But then I got really good with it. I got to the point where I could float. Then it was more than a float. It was a very controlled float. Then it was literally what I would call flying. Yeah, it sounds really stupid, you know what I mean?
no, it
But
doesn't, actually.
it was tripped out through my 20s. It was really tripped out. This was like a thing that went on for about 6, 7 years. But anyway, yeah.
Well, you guys know, for those of you who know me, I'm a precognitive dreamer. I do see events before they happen. A lot of times I don't want to, but yep, there it is. But I've always theorized that I am remote viewing when I'm dreaming like that. Simply because when I have those dreams, I always describe it to people as my senses are on crack. Everything I see is not just colorful, it's colorful times 50. Everything I hear is amplified. Everything I smell is amplified. Everything I touch is it's like being on ecstasy. It's just like, whoa. I have all of my senses and I know who I am, but I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And a lot of times, like I said, my dreams are coupled and Mark will tell you this, they're in twos. It's usually 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 hours, 2 months before the event takes place. And it can be timed right down to the minute. But again, I've always believed that's not astral projection. That was actually remote viewing.
Not to be a sniper, but I'd like to add something to that. When you're actually viewing those things, those are the weight of history and the momentum moving toward that time. And if you're having those and they're turning out bad, take those and you can alter that, because that is in front of you and it is the momentum of time that you're actually measuring. Yield.
Actually, because very rarely are they personal. They're world events. I always say, in fact, Jolie, by the way, hi, Jolie, I know you're listening. She'll remember it because she was in the chat when it happened. This is years ago. The Northern Illinois campus shooting, when a guy went on campus in Northern Illinois College and basically shot it up. I was not just there. I was next to some of the victims as they fell. In my dream, of course, I could describe them to the T. I could smell the gunpowder. I could tell you the building it happened in. I could describe it. And this is before the news broke. I was writing about this in my chat because I had dreamt it and I knew it was coming. And I kept saying, 2 days, 48 hours, I'm going to put it on that line because this is something, it's imminent. But there's nothing I can do to alter it. It's funny because I've always thought that I'm not here to alter it. I'm here to be the landing pad for people. I'm here to be a support system to get people to not overreact, to basically maybe emotionally get them through it. It's the only reasonable thing I can think of as to why I'd be shown things. Hurricane Katrina, that was a 6-month dream that kept adding to itself. When an event happened, that part of the dream would stop and something else would add on. So I can't tell you, I couldn't have controlled that if I wanted to. I can't tell you why. I can see it. I think it might be something frequency and time based. When I'm remote viewing, for some reason, I'm synced in with something.
A lot of times we confuse things by getting them exactly opposite. It's not so much that you are being sent these images. You're actually seeking these images out because you're that curious about the world around you. Would that make sense?
That's very possible. But like I said, in fact, that's funny you say that, because I always say I'm in a constant state of readiness. Like, I live my whole life literally waiting for like the next event to happen, because I can feel it when it's coming. And it's weird, like with the
Oh, now you've stepped on something here. Mind you, I'm 62 years old, so I've had the ups, I've had the downs, and the downs, some of them has been rather crazy. And I realized while I was in these downs, it was almost suicidal. And I would think about it as like, I don't give a rat's ass. I'm too interested in what's going to happen next. And it survived. It has saved my life multiple times.
Well, it's more of it's like a constant state of situational awareness. Like, even in my life, day to day, I mean, my husband is on with us, Raphael. He'll tell you, I'm situationally aware. Like, I see things that nobody else sees 90% of the time. I can see somebody's eye move in a certain way, their forehead creases. I can tell you exactly what they're thinking because I'm situationally aware. And I don't know what triggered that in my life, but some event triggered it. And it's just the way I am. But it's the same thing in the dream.
You are familiar with the name Aleister Crowley, right?
Oh, yes. Very familiar.
Okay. You're familiar with his story of walking down the street behind somebody, and he was demonstrating his ability in order to take over that person's mind and make them falter?
Oh, yes. Well, that's
okay. Now,
yeah.
If you reverse that and you're simply empathetic, what is the result of that? That you're picking up on that other person's mind empathetically, not invasively.
No, it can be invasive. I'm 1,000% empathic.
It's not invasive. It's a matter of frequency, and you have no control of that. It's the same thing as being able to control whether or not you can feel pain if someone tries to burn you. You can't control that. It's part of you.
A lot of times I will apologize to people because I can literally hear their thoughts, and I'll be like, I don't want to know that. Need to walk away now because you're really loud, and I know you're not talking, but I can hear you. My husband will tell you that too, because sometimes I'll yell across the house, "Stop that! I can hear you," and he'll start laughing because he knows. But I don't, and I told you at the beginning of this, I do believe this is all frequency based. I think it's a frequency I'm tuned to. My genetics are tuned to it. This is something that's hereditary. It comes down through the lineage of my family. And it's something that each female or male, because some of the men are like this too.
Hey, do you feel my vibe? Do you feel my vibe? Because this is a very old saying. Do you feel my vibe? We can go back all the way to the 1960s. Can you feel my vibe? The people, I can't remember the two guys' name that seen the entire universe in a mathematical fractal. They freaked me out in South America. I can't remember, but they were really responsible for a lot of the parties and, more importantly, some of the legendary concerts later. But I can't remember their names. But you have to understand something. You are actually attached to the energy around you. And you can't turn that off. You can't turn it on. There is no controlling. It's the same thing as deciding that your heart's not going to beat. It's not going to beat when it's time not to beat. It's not going to be something you command to happen. So
Nope.
that's the thing that you're going to have to realize. And
I just try to make it work to people's benefits. I try to bring balance to people with it. I try to, like, if I learned very young not to tell somebody if I have a dream about them. I don't tell them, because I don't ever want to do cause and effect. So I usually just try to gently guide them in a different direction.
I see a lot of parallel between me and you. We're just we're in the same college. We're in the same classes. It's time of year ahead of you, it seems.
Yep. I'm like, well, I'm 55.
I have a desire to share so much with you, but some of it requires some, introductions and stuff like that. But the energies that you're describing and how you're describing it, there is no escape from, because we are in a hyper energetic field just in order to create us. Have you ever noticed that if you look at the pattern of veins in a human body, you look at a tree, it's exactly the same ratios. If you look at lightning, it's the same ratios, the same fractal over and over again that is directing certain particles to do certain things. And the complexity of your mind is actually a very small, tiny fractal, that only one instance of this particular fractal is yours.
Well, see, when you say that though, that's where I was talking about. Everybody jumps to that conclusion, like the mind is just insignificant, and it's actually not. You really don't comprehend what your mind is doing, because you have fractured memories that are within your mind that you aren't even aware of. Everything you see, hear, taste, feel, smell is put into your brain in little fractured memories, and you don't even know what they are.
It goes further.
Well, we can go back to the 100th monkey that was observed over there in islands. They had treats that they were throwing to the monkeys. It was getting sand on it, and there was one group of monkeys that learned in order to sit there and take it back down to the water, rinse it off, and eat it. What was odd about it is that island with no contact whatsoever picked up on the same habits as this other island. And there's only one explanation, and that would be race memory, but current race memory, that you're connected to that energetic flow. I yield.
Like I said, Roger, I've described it to you guys a million times. When I dream, I do what I call grid surf. I'm surfing a network, a universal network. It's like a web.
Now,
I can see
hold
it.
on. We got 1 minute until break. Hold that thought, and we will be right back and continue this conversation, Nancy.
That's funny, because I bring up the
All right, we're on radio break right now.
He brought the same thing up last week.
I bring up that 100th monkey like every other week.
Yeah.
The monkey man.
Well, now our conversations give the context
I think the best use of
to
it,
come up.
I think the best use of it, whether it be the 100th monkey or the 10,000th monkey, is there's 10,000 monkeys at the door asking us in order to look at a script for Hamlet that they wrote. Straight out of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, okay? And that is the best example, because everything will happen. It will happen again. It'll be thought of again, and it is recursive. And that is as well as in mind as it is in physical.
Everything.
Okay, whether it be history or ever. You got to remember, when we're talking about history, we're talking about man-made things. We're not talking about nature-built things. We're just tracking our insanity.
All right. Well, don't forget, Roger. At 10 till, we got to start wrapping up.
Yeah.
And then 5 till, we got to clear.
Now 10 till, you're talking about 10 till 10, right?
Right.
Okay.
And,
so.
Guys got to remember that the universe has memory. I mean, the Akashic, that's no joke. The Akashic, or whatever you want to call it, Edgar Casey dubbed it the Akashic, but it is basically, there's no time. And I've always said that time is a perception. There is no time. Everything is stored in the Akashic, all of it, whether it be humanity, whether it be something extraterrestrial, everything universe that deals with the universe is stored in that Akashic. Every memory.
Edgar Casey, that's far out stuff.
Well,
Yeah,
here's the other thing.
Are you
Remember the
going to
reincarnation?
continue? Are you going to continue the divination series then, as part of this?
Jolie has actually reminded me about the Baltimore
Because that would be really that would probably fall in really good with the rest of this and make a nice series out of this.
Well, actually, this is a part. This is a part
that I'd like to bring in.
This is a part of a series that I'm doing called "In Search of Thanatron." Now, this is actually going to be. We're delving into this, but eventually, I'm going to get into another one that's going to be another series. But this actually is just one part of it, because like in the first one we did the ionosphere, and I wanted to get into blue beam. The second one, we talked about other voices, and we started talking about biological technologies. And this time, now we're talking about reincarnation. So the next one, I mean, you brought it up in the last show. We were talking about Einstein's brain. I mean, that's where we got to go. Einstein's brain and freaking Atlantis, dude. And
Einstein's brain, actually Tesla's brain. Throw that in there too.
Well, it kind of goes hand in hand.
Which In Search of are you going to use for that one then? Because I don't.
We're going to find a good one. You just
because they didn't have one just on Einstein.
Well, I know they have one on Atlantis though, and
Atlantis, yes.
Atlantis,
continents.
Atlantis, Star Children, as well as Genius and Einstein's brain are all connected. Believe it or not.
So then you're going to connect that with Mu and all the other lost continents then too?
No, Mu and Mu is
Lemuria.
Lemuria.
Yeah.
That's all going into my underworld.
That was actually a series that In Search of did.
Right, and that's going to be
where we've been and where we're going.
Lemuria is sitting at the South Pole. That's the big deal at the South Pole. That is Lemuria.
Lemuria, Hollow Earth.
30 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
All right. You guys get me.
In fact, they say that a lot of people are traveling to Florida because they think that was once Tartaria.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here's your countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you're live right now.
If regression therapy taps into hidden layers of memory, could it be working through these same pathways? The mossy fiber holding continuity, the climbing fibers opening ascent into patterns beyond ordinary perception. The parallels between reincarnation cycles and the brain's learning cycles. When I draw that parallel, I'm highlighting how two very different domains, spiritual belief in reincarnation and scientific understanding of neural learning, seem to echo the same cyclical structure. In Hindu, Buddhist, and many indigenous traditions, reincarnation is not random rebirth, but a cycle of lessons. A soul returns again and again carrying residues of past lives, karma, working through unfinished patterns. Each life is both a continuation and an opportunity for transformation, refining consciousness over time. In the brain, learning rarely happens in one go. Circuits run through cycles of trial and error, especially in systems like the cerebellum. Mossy fibers carry the predicted pattern, what we think will happen, while climbing fibers carry the error signals, the surprise, the correction. Through repetition, the nervous system adjusts each cycle, leaving a trace, making the pattern stronger or more refined. Karma in reincarnation is like the residual weight of experience in the brain. Just as karmic action influence future births, neural actions influence future cycles of behavior. Errors that are uncorrected persist. Lessons not learned repeat, mirroring the idea that souls return until the lesson is understood. With that, I'm going to open it up to you guys and let you go at it. See what you have to say about it.
I find
I
that
agree with it. I don't want to come back to this planet, whoever quote unquote God is, when I get there, I really hope that whatever proving ground this is, I passed it. Because yeah, this has been fun. It's not been all bad, but I'm good. I'm good on doing it again. I definitely think there's something to that.
I know that our founding fathers did not want, a basis of religion or school of thought to be built on karma.
Do you like
I'm
going
just
to do
saying,
that?
I'm just saying what the founding fathers wanted. That's why they went more with the Judeo-Christian. They wanted that. They weren't trying to force it, whichever one.
I don't
Religion
know
on.
who the gentleman was that was talking before, but I want to answer him. If you've ever enjoyed going to a fireworks display, one of the biggest things that keep me wanting to come back right now, right here, what's going on, is because they look how much money they spent on Armageddon, dude. Can you imagine? And it's going to be the biggest fireworks display in history. And you don't want to sit there and find out what happens? I do. And if I have to reincarnate one more time in order to check that out, I think I think it would be worth it. How about anybody else?
Not for me. I'm for oblivion. End it
it's
all.
interesting.
Yeah, I'm
But
good.
anyways, getting back into that, for the past lives and that, I think a lot has to do with genetics and how genes are passed from people to people. And we already know that genes carry memory. And they've even, used it in computers and things like that. So, or modeled computers after stuff like that to do that. So I really believe that, even though you might not have been a direct descendant, somewhere in the DNA, that memory can emerge. And that came from when I did the first show on this, from the original Cafe Enigma. And that was some of our conclusions on it as well.
Good way to come to a conclusion, to be honest.
It's epigenetics. I mean, that's what I was talking about at the very beginning of the show, was epigenetics, and the fact that you have cellular memory, genetic memory. It passes down generation to generation. But where do you draw the line? Because there are things that are outside of epigenetics that occur that cannot be simply explained. It's kind of like when I was talking earlier about ghost hunting and some of the experiences I've had, where I can tell you I've gone into a location and I am I'm really skeptical in a lot of ways when I ghost hunt, because I know, there's a 99% chance that this is your brain trying to deal with something, or it's environmental, or there's always another explanation. But there's always that 1% that leaves you dumbfounded because you cannot, for the life of you, explain what you just witnessed or what you just heard. And it was funny because Vicky was saying something at that point about you either go to heaven or hell. And one of the running jokes we had in the paranormal was apparently somebody didn't get a copy of that contract because there's a lot of things that happen where you're like, well, if that person's not in heaven or hell, they're just kind of wandering around the house. Even if it's a residual, that's still a trap. It's, it's energy that's trapped for some reason or another. It's, in fact, the paranormal is one of the reasons I have so much knowledge on electromagnetics and how EMF can affect your brain and how radiation affects your brain and how your environment affects your brain and all these things that occur. And with all that knowledge, I still cannot explain to you some of the things I have been privy to. I still, with all the logic I've got, I can't explain it to you. I can tell you, well, obviously something's going on here. That's why they call it paranormal or supernatural, because it's not within our parameters yet to explain. I think quantum physics is getting there. I think we're going to find some explanations within quantum physics eventually. But it's just, there's certain things that we just cannot explain. It's the universe's secret. It's the universe as a whole. There's a very interesting theory out there. You guys has everybody on the panel heard of the Black Knight? Do you know what the Black Knight is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So for the listeners that are listening right now, the Black Knight is an object that has been photographed in low Earth orbit that looks like a rock. Actually, it reminds me of Oumuamua, the asteroid, and actually Atlas, the new asteroid that they found, which actually looks a lot like Oumuamua. But they believe it is a satellite of some sort because of the way it moves around in its orbit, and the fact that it seems to have these interesting little functions. Now, if you talk to NASA, their official statement on it is no, this is imaginary, it doesn't exist. But who trusts NASA? Because I don't. NASA's nothing but a large black budget to do a lot of things that have nothing to do with space. But I've read in several places now that the Black Knight is actually basically like a prison gate to keep souls trapped on this planet and to make us continually recycle, to relearn. Like basically,
Wow.
the expression prison planet comes to mind.
I thought that's what the moon was.
Well,
I thought
actually,
the moon was this great big
you
soul
were on the
trap.
show with me before on this, Nancy, when we talked about the Black Knight with John Titor II.
Yep.
And John said,
second
yeah, it
story
is
about the Black Knight
Yeah.
too, though.
and John said, oh yeah, it is extraterrestrial, but it doesn't come from this galaxy.
Is there
Yeah.
not
And
supposed
no
to be
other
some-
extraterrestrials will mess with it because they don't want to deal with those folks.
Is there not supposed to be something to that though? The
There
moon
is.
being a soul trap.
It is, and yes, that's part of Andrew Bellagio and Obama's story. But Andrew Bellagio and Obama has both been to the moon. Now, one of the things I didn't share with you about the story I gave you is my perspective was from that of the moon looking at the Earth.
Mhm.
Okay, when I said that there was a window there, it wasn't a window, it was perception. But my perception, my point of view was from the moon to the Earth at that time. Now, whether or not the Black Knight, there's a secondary story, which is one of the very old stories. It talks about the chaotic ones. I don't think that that's connected the way that it would be connected if it was the other, that was part of the soul trap. I don't believe that the Black Knight is. However, it is from one of the babysitters, from the original creators, and it is a ET phone home, not go home, phone home. And this has been set here in order to monitor us. When you travel across the galaxy, thousands of years can happen. So this is a way of monitoring us in real time gravitationally, because any gravitational force in the universe you can detect immediately from anywhere. There is no time. That's part of quantum mechanics, and we have to start accepting the quantum mechanics rules of operation for this in order to be able to actually fit. But the Black Knight was suggested, that was 6-7 years ago, that was actually shot down by American forces. And this has caused, afterwards, there was a bomb on the moon that we just had to put a bomb on the moon, and it didn't have to be any kind of bomb, and had to be nuke. And it had to go there. And if you've seen any of photographs, there was an evacuation of that spot by a bunch of little dots and bright lights that left that spot just before impact, and it was all visible. On the photos of the control room, they actually had a photograph laying in front of one of the astronomers as they were watching this on the thing, and in that it had a circled area, and it was an image of a building on the moon.
Yes.
So these things are real. Now, here's the other thing about the Black Knight, and I want to give it some accordance here. She says it's like a rock. It is. It's an L-shaped rock, however. And this rock, if you think about it, I mean, does it make any sense for us to put a bunch of Sprite cans together and call it a rocket and call it safe? It doesn't. Okay. However, what if we grabbed one of these passing asteroids, we drill a hole in it, put a couple of chairs in there, throw a door on it, and then shove a rocket up its ass? We've got something.
I was going to say, how about we just drill a hole in Barack Obama and Eric Holder's head?
They have enough hot air.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is we have something that can survive micro asteroids and everything else. It survived for 10,000 years out there without being destroyed. And now we're protected by an asteroid 360 degrees all the way around us with a door on it. It makes more sense. So when they're saying,
it's interesting because they think that, I believe Nikola Tesla believed it was the Black Knight that was in communication with him.
Yeah.
Exactly, and it was.
Exactly, and
That's
that's something right there that I do want to bring up later on in the next episode. Most likely, that is going to be the next topic that we have, because
You're welcome.
was the conversation.
I mean,
I always
thought that I actually always thought that the Black Knight looked like one of the giant moai on Easter Island, if you really look at it.
But if you look at
if they could get them to walk, why couldn't they get them to be in orbit?
Well, if you look at Atlas, though, if you turn Atlas vertical, it's almost identical. It's just much larger. And on Oahu, same thing. If you changed the position of it and went vertical with it, it's almost identical as far as shape goes. I mean, I've actually compared them side by side, and I'm like, this is freaking crazy, because here's this object sitting up in orbit. They won't talk about it. I mean, good luck getting somebody at NASA to talk to you about the Black Knight. It's not going to happen. And now we have all these things going on with the moon. Like, if y'all have noticed, if you're skywatchers like I am, that what was it? Asteroid 2024 or something, CL 2024, I think it is now supposed to hit the moon. Like, hit it, and it's a big asteroid. And I'm thinking, yeah, what better way to cover like a nuclear event on the moon than to say an asteroid's going to hit it? Oh, gee, look, we didn't see this coming. Oh, wait, now it's coming. And, I just feel like we're being set up for so many different storylines. Blue beam, Roger, you mentioned that earlier. Blue beam is something I am vastly knowledgeable on. And it's something that scares the piss out of me right now, because I see it all in action. Already, I can see them leading up to a blue beam event. And they're not.
Think of this with past lives and that. When this all kicks off, do you think someone's going to have some past life regression flashbacks of when Atlantis and Mu were destroyed? All right, because it'll be something similar.
Yep. Now, just like just as raw signals in the cerebellum need refinement through cycles of learning, reincarnation fragments, if they exist, would need shaping through the body in a lifetime. A newborn might carry the raw imprint of fear, desire, or talent, but without context, it remains vague, like a signal without circuitry. Now, over time, life provides the shaping context, turning fragments into recognizable traits, compulsions, or affinities. Some children studied in reincarnation researches, like those conducted by Ian Stevenson, seem to have raw memories, names, faces, places that only later get pieced into coherent patterns. Now, these early flashes resemble unrefined raw signals, burst without integration. Think of it like this. Raw signals are the sparks, but they need mossy fibers, the structure, rhythm, and order to turn into meaningful patterns. In spiritual terms, these sparks could be karmic fragments, bits of memories from beyond one life, awaiting the architecture of a new nervous system to shape them into usable form. So keep that in mind whenever you guys think about that, because I know you guys are getting into a lot of this, but those are things that are really, really important, because like I said, I don't separate the physical, the emotional, or the spiritual. I think that they all work together. Without our brains being able to function and having the ability to freaking do these things, reincarnation would never happen. Just like most things that are spiritual, okay? I don't feel that anything spiritual could happen to the human body unless they actually, it was actually capable of being done within the brain, without it being something that the brain could actually perform, it wouldn't happen. And I really do believe that. I believe that you have to take the physical, the spiritual, and the emotional, psychological into consideration, So, with that being said, we are coming up on the end of the show. So, as a wrap up, I'd like for you guys to ponder these questions. Are climbing fibers architects of change, and mossy fibers keepers of order within our brain? Are ancient myths merely subconscious descriptions of these structures? And if reincarnation exists, is it a recycling of souls or a universal law of ascent? Do regression memories reflect only our psychological, or do they point to a larger consciousness woven into the cosmos? And finally, if the brain's architecture mirrors cosmic architecture, are we fragments of a greater intelligence climbing towards integration? We may walk with mossy roots or spiral upwards on climbing threads, but in the end, we are all woven into the same unseen pattern